Oh hey, I finally got to start to make a living by talking about the hardest games of all time. All I gotta do is just do a quick Google, and here we go. Well, I already talked about Cuphead, so let's take a look at the others here. Well, most of these games I couldn't afford, or I don't know, I don't have the appropriate systems to play them on. Ninja Gaiden 2. I don't have Ninja Gaiden 2, but what I do happen to own is Ninja Gaiden on the Virtual Console. Well, it's close I get to playing the original on an official Nintendo console, so might as well try it out. But first, let's take a little history lesson. Ninja Gaiden is a hack and slash side-scroller platform video game developed and published by Tecmo. Tecmo first announced a Famicom version of the game in the January 15, 1988 issue of Family Computer magazine under the title Ninja Gaiden, which would later be used for the game's American version. I found this on Chris Covell's website, and I recommend going through his website. You can find a ton of info about NES and Famicom games in their early stages that were only exclusive in Famimagas, or Family Computer magazines. It was developed and released around the same time as its arcade version of the same name, but neither were direct ports of each other. According to developer Masato Kato, who is known for penning the script of Chrono Trigger, as well as other RPG titles like Xenogears, Chrono Cross, and Final Fantasy 7 and 11, the term ninja was gaining popularity in North America, so Tecmo decided to develop a ninja-related game for the NES at the same time the arcade version was being developed. This was Masato Kato's first full-time project as a video game designer. The game was released in Japan on December 9, 1988, with North America on March 13, 1989, and the PAL version on August 15, 1991. Alright, let's finally play a game. Well, as you can see, I'm playing this game on 3DS, which is played through the Virtual Console, which has save states, have assault variability. Whatever, let's dive right in. Let me tell you, this looks amazing for a game in the late 80s. The amazing graphics and soundtrack. It is also one of the few NES games to have fully animated cutscenes. While they're not common these days, these are pretty fun to watch. Let's talk about the gameplay. We play as a ninja named Ryu Hayabusa. You mean Ryu from Street Fighter? His father's name is Ken. Okay, Ryu and Ken. How can you not think of Street Fighter when you hear those names? Or were we? Now, as you may notice, this game is incredibly different from its arcade counterpart. The arcade version is more so another Double Dragon, whereas here you have a more traditional side-scroller. You attack using a katana. You can also attack while jumping or in midair as well. You can use your secondary weapons like shurikens, fireballs, and boomerangs by holding up on the D-pad and pressing the B button. Though every time you use them, they'll drain your spiritual strength. You can regain your spiritual strength by collecting red and blue spiritual strength items, found in lamps and lanterns by attacking them. Much like in Castlevania, where you destroy the said objects to obtain hearts and power-ups. You can jump on and off walls, but you can't attack in this state. You can jump off walls by holding the D-pad in the opposite direction you're facing and pressing the A button. There are 6 acts in total that comprise 20 levels, each harder than the last. The story is as follows. Ryu's father, Ken, was killed in a duel. After the duel, Ryu receives a letter from Ken which tells him to find an archaeologist named Walter Smith in America. So Ryu goes to America to avenge his father and find Walter Smith. Before he can find Walter, he is shot and kidnapped by a young woman who later hands him a demonic-looking statue before releasing him. Ryu finds Walter, who tells him about the demon statues he and Ken had found in the Amazon ruins. There are 2 demon statues, Light and Shadow. With the 2 statues combined, they can transform into Jashin, or Jason if you will, the evil demon that Shinobi defeated. So during their conversation, a masked figure steals the shadow figure. Ryu chases him down, retrieves the statue, returns, finds that Walter is dying, and the light statue is missing. Three men confront Ryu and take him to an interrogation room where he meets Foster, head of the Special Auxiliary Unit of the CIA. Foster explains to Ryu that someone under the name Jakyo? Hakyo? I'm calling him bad guy. So Foster asks Ryu to go to the temple and eliminate him. Ryu finds bad guy holding captive the young woman from earlier. Ryu then drops from side through a trapdoor and into a catacomb. Ryu encounters Bloody Malt. Ryu beats him, and as he is dying, Malt reveals that he was the one who dueled with Ryu's father and that he is still alive. So he reaches the temple's inner chambers. He finds his father possessed by some evil figure. Ryu destroys it to save Ken. Bad guy tries to kill Ryu, but Ken throws himself to save Ryu. Ken is slowly dying. Ryu kills bad guy. A lunar eclipse occurs. Jashin returns. Ryu kills Jashin but gets hit pretty badly. Ken tells Ryu to leave him and take the woman instead. Foster orders the girl to kill Ryu, but she chooses not to. The two kiss. Happy ending. Alright, let's finally play the game. The enemies immediately respawn after you kill them when they're on the edge of the screen. The enemy placement is the worst. There's little to no space where you can land, attack, or be safe. There are bosses at the end of each act. The first few bosses are quite manageable. I use the term manageable because you're guaranteed to get hit multiple times. Yeah, you get hit by everything. Soldiers, Mike Tyson, birds, dogs, bats. There are three final bosses. The first boss is manageable once you get used to its attack pattern. The second boss, however, is a different story. The fireballs never miss. They'll follow you wherever you go. There's no escape. And also the second boss takes a while to die. While it may sound like it, there is still an attack pattern, so there's still a chance you can still progress, says the guy who's playing on a virtual console. Next, you fight a giant xenomorph looking shrimp. Its attacks spread around the screen, and what's worse is that the final boss is easier than the second boss. Not to mention, the levels in this act are just random. It has so many random enemy placements. You have little or no platform to stand on, you can fall off easily, and the amount of enemies attacking you? That's bullshit. Oh hey, I don't know if I can keep this up. The more I play difficult games, the less time I can spend being more happy. But I got nothing to do with my life besides playing video games, so I decide to be a moron. Not you again. Ninja Gaiden 2. Not that one, this one. The second installment in the Ninja Gaiden trilogy for the NES. Great. The game was first released in Japan on April 6, 1990, in North America on May 1990, and in Europe on October 27, 1994. The game is titled Ninja Gaiden 2 The Dark Sword of Chaos. In Europe, it is called Shadow Warriors 2 The Dark Sword of Chaos, and in Japan, it is called I Give Up. A monthly American video game magazine called Electronic Gaming Monthly previewed Ninja Gaiden 2 in late 1989 and early 1990. Nintendo initially introduced the game as an arcade game for their Play Choice 10 system at Chicago's American Coin Machine Exposition in March 1990, which was marketed as a sequel to the first Ninja Gaiden arcade game. The game also had ports published for the Amiga and MS-DOS by GameTech in 1991. Well, here we go again. A sequel to a franchise that I have to play for the sake of my existence. Gotta stay close to your identity, people. So here's the plot. After the first game's events, Ashtar, the bad guy who controlled the bad guy from the last game, is informed of that bad guy's defeat. He plans to rule over Earth by opening the Gate of Darkness. Meanwhile, Ryu ran into a bunch of thugs and some sort of monster. An anonymous person met Ryu after the fight and he told Ryu to go to the Tower of Lodja to save Irene, the girl we met in the last game. On the way to the tower, Ryu got ambushed by a goon, and the goon told a little bit about Ashtar. Ryu made his way to the top of the tower, found another bad guy, and found Irene, or so he thought. It appeared to be Ashtar in disguise and he shocked Ryu using his sword. Johnny Cage appears and Ashtar disappears into the maze of darkness. He revealed that his name is Robert and he's with Special Intelligence. Robert talks about the Sword of Chaos, or Ashtar's sword, and he tells Ryu to go to the maze to find Ashtar and Irene. We run into Ashtar and he starts talking about evil taking over the world, something like that, and we somehow ended up at the North Pole. And let me just show you this. What an absolute masterpiece of a dialogue. Irene told Ryu that there was an altar somewhere and that he must destroy it, and Jesus! How is this on the NES? This looks sick! After fighting some familiar creatures, Ryu runs into Robert, who appears to be injured. Robert tells Ryu that Irene got caught once again. I'm starting to see a pattern here. A bunch of enemies is coming, so Robert tries to hold them off as much as he can. He dies and Ryu finds Irene, only to find his old enemy still alive. Jack Jackie Chan. Jackie explains how the evil sword works and the gate of darkness shall open. Ryu defeats him once again. Jackie comes back and turns into... what? He defeats Jackie and he's still alive. So with the power of Ryu's clan, the dragon sword, and save states, he finally defeats Jackie Chan. And then we get a face reveal of Ryu. I wear a mask with a smile for hours at a time. Irene is still alive, everything becomes romantic, and they stare into the sunset. The end. Now, the gameplay is still pretty much the same compared to the first game. In the very first level, we are introduced to ninjas with osteoporosis, a bunch of master splinters, and ninjas that throw shurikens and pieces out. You also have these red orbs around the area. Hitting them gives you random power-ups, with the most notable one being the clone power-up. This is a really useful power-up throughout the game, so you can only have up to 2 clones with you. It's really vital to have a clone throughout the level. The first boss is not all too difficult, he just walks around and then he charges at you. If you're clinging to a wall, let go right before he charges to that side. In the next act, now we have Jason Voorhees running at you and the most annoying enemy in any game. Birds. Right after the train section, we are now on top of a mountain. How did that happen? The air keeps pushing us and it is infuriating. The air changes directions without giving you any second of preparation, and because of that, the air will just push you off a cliff. Like, how is that even possible? I know we're on top of a mountain, but that does not explain how a ninja carrying a katana keeps getting pushed by a freaking wind. Another thing I want to point out is that on each side of any platform, you can climb up and down like a ladder. It's just not plain obvious, it looks like it's part of the background or something. I just realized this 10 minutes into the game. Moving on to the boss. This is creepy. The boss sends out a group of spiders. The spiders are the most irritating part of this fight. If you try to go up, the boss goes down. If you try to go down, the boss goes up. But the boss gives you a little amount of time for you to land a hit. On to the next level. Oh my god! You can't see where the platforms are. This is ridiculous. It's not as annoying as the wind thing at the last level, but here it's easier to fall off without knowing there's a gap there. I want to point out the second worst enemy of the game. These guys. They like to jump around you and roll around. They are so annoying. Right after that area, you enter the tower. We also have this new guy that throws fireballs horizontally. I like to mess with this guy a bit, though he packs a lot. You need to land a ton of hits to defeat him. Afterwards, it's on to the next boss fight. We are fighting some sort of robot and he throws projectiles at you. He flies around, so you need to get a hit for the robot to land. I'd say this boss fight is easier than the last one, as long as you're careful. We're in hell now. We have these things that float around and shoot 4 projectiles. It's hard to see them when the background is fire. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Shortly after this part, we move on to... oh my god. This is torture. I don't know which is worse now, this, or this. But that's not all. The water becomes more annoying in the boss fight. You have this thing in the upper middle and sometimes its hands come out of either side. Whenever you get hit here, it's easy to get pushed by the water and it's hard to get back up. But this boss fight is actually pretty easy. You just need a good amount of health and patience. So you move on to this sort of dungeon area with spikes around. You have less room to move around these areas, and it's easy to lose a ton of health. And come on, what's next? Muddy water? Quicksand? These guys never run out of ideas to give you a migraine. Obviously, the platforms are slippery because it's all ice. There's not much to say here other than these spiders who shoot fire at you, that's it. The next boss is Ashtar. This fight can be pretty annoying and it takes a while to finish. A bunch of fireballs come at Ashtar and release them in the exact same way. After that, he teleports. There's no indication of where Ashtar will appear next, and fight is tough, but I gotta admit, the stage and the music during this fight rocks. We're inside a cave in the next stage. This stage can be a bit confusing with these destroyed buildings covering the screen, and now everything is red. On to the next boss fight, we gotta defeat two gargoyles. They jump and shoot gums at you. Moving on. Next we have the most disorienting background in NES history. Now we're in whatever this place is. Then we gotta fight the bad guy from the last game. Not much has changed compared to the first game, but it is still incredibly annoying. What the hell is this? So we gotta avoid the poison dripping from the ceiling while avoiding harmful meatballs. This fight does feel intense if you're low on health, but the stage is something I want to talk about. There's just too much room to move around, and I know I would still complain about it if the area is a bit smaller, but still. The next phase is similar to that of the final boss in the first game. You gotta hit the head first while avoiding its attacks, and there's barely any room here. After enough damage, it's time to strike the heart. Game over. Ninja Gaiden 2 is definitely a step up in terms of cutscenes, enemy variety, and overall gameplay. Now the question is this harder than the first game? Yes, but not a whole bunch. This game has a ton of gimmicks that will definitely mess you up. Now the cutscenes look way better. There's much more stuff going in the background and it looks awesome. The new abilities are so helpful in this game. While the new abilities are great, that doesn't mean the game gets any easier. This is a Ninja Gaiden game, and this one rocks. Oh hey, I'm just chilling, no big deal. You know, I'm feeling pretty good right now. No stress, no work, no Ninja Gaiden 3. Let's get this over with. Ninja Gaiden 3 is the final installment in the Ninja Gaiden trilogy for the NES. For the NES. I'm never escaping this stupid franchise. Of course, this is the same side-scrolling platformer developed and published by Tech. It was released in Japan on June 26, 1991 for the Famicom and in North America in August for the NES. However, the NES version was never released in Europe. As much as I hate how Nintendo keeps restricting most of its products to Europe, I'm glad this is one of them. No one should ever suffer playing this game. Only people that don't have a living can play this game like me. But it did get a port later on to the Atari Lynx, a handheld by Atari. It was released in 1993 in Europe and in North America, with the European version retaining the North American title. So this is interesting. So the North American titles obviously have Ninja Gaiden as the title for the series. In Europe, however, the first two Ninja Gaiden games are called Shadow Warriors. Now, in the third entry, they decide to keep the same name for both North America and Europe. Why? I usually don't like changing titles to localized games for other regions, so if you're going to change the title for the third entry of a series that already has its own established name in a specific region, why even bother? That's like changing Avengers Infinity War into Defenders Eternal Battle or something. Now, while we're on the topic of titles, let's take a look at the box art. I don't like this. Let's compare the three box arts. The first one is alright, it's got a lot of tension going on in the background and there's a lot of fire, which could imply that the game's telling you that what you're going to play is the literal definition of hell. The second I think looks much better. You got more story elements on the cover and it is overall pretty solid. This is just bland and empty. You only got Ryu on the cover and that's it. I mean, it's fine, it's serviceable. It's just that compared to the last two games, this is definitely the worst one. There aren't any story elements or anything that's happening in the background. I guess the cloud there represents the ancient ship of doom, but if it is, it doesn't even look close to the one we see in game. We'll get there in a few moments because I got one more thing to whine about. It's said in Wikipedia, the best place for all your sources, that the North American version, which is the one that I played, was intentionally made harder than the Japanese version by the use of limited continues, stronger enemies, and the removal of a password system, which could have been so useful because while the game isn't too long, it's very hard. I mean, why? Why specifically the North American version? Why not do the same with the European version or even the Japanese version? What did the Land of Obesity do to deserve this? And why am I angry about this? I'm not even an American. Alright, this is it. Even though this is just the first of the many other games of Ninja Gaiden. Why am I being sentimental? I hate Ninja Gaiden. So we boot up the game and the cutscene plays, much like the previous two games. We see Irene getting chased by us, so this is what happens when you're a Minecraft YouTuber. Evil dialogue, Irene falls off cliff and dies. But that's just a theory. A game theory. We received the news and we headed to the laboratory where Irene was being chased, then the game starts. So, who's ready for me to lose it? So this is the first level. I hope you like industrial piping. We're inside the laboratory, and what the hell are these? So we got ninjas, obviously, and some robotic spiders. Apparently, they also got a mummy wearing a turtle shell for a hat and a floating marshmallow. One new feature you may have noticed already is the ability to hang overhead from surfaces. This is a really cool mechanic that should have been implemented more often today in platforming games. This ability is pretty useful whenever you're in a tight situation when you're surrounded by enemies. Doing this will give you just a bit amount of time to decide how to get out of situations like that. The problem is that in the later part of the game, most of the enemies fly out of nowhere and you're always guaranteed to get hit. Of course, the power-ups return. We get the same power-ups from the previous games, the boomerangs, the fireballs, and the fire wheel, but we get a new power-up that allows you to throw projectiles above and below you simultaneously. This power-up is really useful to me in the last few levels of the game, especially since most enemies come above and below you. One thing I noticed is that more health potions pop up, especially the 1-ups, though they are more difficult to get by. Moving back to the first level, it's pretty easy in Ninja Gaiden terms. There are some parts where there are a ton of enemies, but overall it's not a very difficult first level. And then we make it to the boss. Again, it's not that challenging. You just gotta time the attacks properly and when to dodge. But if you do get hit, you'll lose a ton of health, so be careful. And that's the first boss, easy. What do you mean this isn't an ordinary lab? They got Scyther and Baymax on crack. We then are greeted by a guy that's totally not creepy at all. He tells us to go to the Castle Rock Fortress. To get there, we'll have to get past all the traps our enemy has set up for us. When did they never? Alright, it's Act 2 and... No! It's a tradition to hate sand levels in video games. If you don't follow this tradition, are you even a gamer? So there are these areas that have quicksand and you slowly sink in if you stand still for a few seconds. All you have to do is to just jump around, but of course, it's Ninja Gaiden, and what do they have in store for us? Mummies with a watermelon for a head and alien frogs. I swear these frogs are so annoying. I jump and try to hit them, I get hit first. I crouch and try to hit them once they land, same thing. I stand still and try to hit them, the same thing happens again. And they drain your health bar if you don't kill them, I swear. These guys are probably one of the worst enemies throughout the entire series in the NES. And that's not all. There are these flying enemies that slowly get to you. While they're slow, they take up most of the space you're trying to get to, but compared to the frogs, these enemies are easier to kill since they move slowly. And also, what happened? It'd be nice if you put a pyramid there since the next stage takes place indoors, but no. You move to the right, next stage. There's no smooth transition here like some parts in the game. Anyway, here's the next stage. We're somewhere on the ground and are introduced to this enemy. This guy has a shield, so you have to wait for them to attack so that they're vulnerable. This part of the level is the first one with tight spacing. There's always at least one enemy on a platform that you're trying to get to. We then enter this part where we run away from the lava. I really like this part. I still have to use save states here, but it's still far from difficult, though it's easy to mess up here. With the way Ninja Gaiden platforming works, it doesn't feel too slow or too fast. It just gives you enough time to take out enemies as you try to escape from the lava. But then again, it's easy to mess up here. We escape the lava and these things return from the second game. Great. Other than that, not much new stuff in this part. Then we get to the second boss. The boss flies around, which is annoying, and it flies up and down whenever it launches an attack. It does this upside down V-shaped attack, which can be hard to dodge, but all you need to do is to stay away from the boss's projectile range whenever it stops. The fight gets more frustrating if you use up your ninja meter to use your secondary weapons. Even if your ninja meter is full, the fight takes a lot of time to finish and it's easy to mess up here. But overall, it's not the hardest boss fight, so moving on. Cutscene plays and Foster. Oh, that guy from the first game. Where have you been? Why weren't you in the second game? And why do you have a red background? Oh. Alright, now we're in the swamp. How do we get from there to here? Anyway, this level incorporates a ton of platforming that requires you to hang under them. Ignore that. There are these platforms that float up and down, and the majority of them float too down that you can instantly dive from the water. What is the point of this? And there are these fish that just jump around. They're about as annoying as the frogs from the last level. The good thing is that they only appear at this level. The bad thing is, they're everywhere here in this level. And then there are times when you have to hang over a vine to avoid an enemy, but there's always that one enemy that stays above the vine, and when you hang over it, you have no choice but to take damage. But this doesn't happen only in this level, it also happens in the following levels too. Just like, why? The enemy just touched my hand, how did it hurt me? So we enter in a, where the hell am I? Like the previous games, the water pushes you here as well. Not much of a big problem, but can be a bit irritating in tight scenarios. There are also these spike balls that appear from above. They basically just follow you around and they can be pretty hard to dodge, but there's always your trusty wall by your side. We also have these blobs that show projectiles that curve on both sides. Again, these projectiles aren't the hardest to dodge, and they take time to charge. So this entire area is a bit long and contains a ton of enemies, and all you have to do is to head to the very bottom. At the bottom we have these frogs, though they don't move as fast as the ones in the last level. Other than that, I feel like they only appeared on this one level, so who cares about them. Next up, we have a lot of shit to tackle here. So let me show an image of this part of the level to summarize what you'll be dealing with here. Can you tell me what I had to go through? This is the first part that I spent a lot of time trying to get through. Even with save states, this stage is just dreadful because these things return all the time. From the first game, we have these birds. They're annoying, small, and they hit me most of the time and you can't even hit them. The same applies here, though this time they're bigger and they take up way too much space, and whenever I feel like I hit them first, I get hit first. This right here is the worst enemy in video game history yet. After that terror, we are greeted by the third boss of the game. Wait, let me just rephrase that. We are greeted by the third bosses of the game. They really like frogs. So we have to deal with these two frogs which apparently share the same health bar, which is good, but man is it hard to dodge them. The shurikens that they throw at you are nearly impossible to dodge. And shortly after that, they jump around and you'll never know where they're going to land. Like the previous boss fight, this takes a while to finish. Primarily because the frogs move everywhere so fast that you don't even have enough time to deal some damage. This is the first boss fight I struggled with in this game, and it took me like 12 minutes. That doesn't sound a lot, but given that you take a ton of damage by just a single hit, 12 minutes is a long time. After that, another cutscene plays. This time we met our clone, so we get a fight scene while the protagonist and the antagonist talk to each other. Typical anime stuff, but at least this one has a lot less stuff going on screen, so that there's time to read the subtitles. Unlike some animes, the fight begins, we lost. You're nothing but talk, aren't you? What do you mean, I'm you? I'll use the information from this fight the next time we meet. Okay, nerd, I got save states. So we're, are we on the ground or at the top? Is that lava in the background? Why are those mountains upside down? Where am I? Not much new stuff here. There are some parts where you need to time with the moving platforms, and this is where it kinda gets annoying. Remember those slow flying enemies from the second level? Well, this is where they truly become the third annoying enemy of the game. When trying to get to this platform, you have no choice but to lose health getting there unless you got the new power-up. But they spawn at a specific place depending on where you are, so you can just ignore some of them since they move slowly, but then again they take up a lot of space and it can get pretty hard to dodge them in a tight spot. But that's not all, we also got the flying bees. Same thing, but it's more annoying trying to hit them. Then we get inside the dungeon with spikes appearing and disappearing at a given time. They're easy to dodge in the first few stages, but they deal a ton of damage. There are these things that shoot projectiles in 3 different directions. Pretty easy to dodge, but it takes a while trying to hit them. So don't even bother doing that. There's a lot more important stuff than these things. Overall, there's not much stuff in this part. You just gotta time your jumps, and there are times when enemies are in places where you can't hit normally, so you have to use some power-ups to beat them. Then we move to this section. Ever imagine what a Violet Galaga ship looks like? Here you go. They're pretty easy to kill using the right power-ups, but if you don't have any, you screw it up. These enemies move horizontally, either from the left or from the right, and they mostly move very slowly and move pretty fast when they like to. Just like the previous part, you just gotta time when you move and jump. The next part is pretty much the same. And then we get to the 4th boss. We're fighting Chestnut. So what does he do? Well, he walks towards you, drills underground and throws fire at you. There's something funny about him going underground. The range of his fire attack is insane. It attacks 5 times and immediately after that, he jumps at you. But this guy is not the hardest boss. It's not that difficult to dodge a fire attack most of the time since you know that it's aiming at you. This fight is probably my favorite out of all the boss fights of the entire game, or maybe even the entire series in the NES. Mainly because it's not the most difficult, and for me it's probably the only boss fight that I had fun playing through. You. I knew you'd come. Yuck. I remember you. I don't. Who the hell is Clancy? So Clancy tells us that he used to work for Foster and that he's secretly creating a Bionoid. To which we ask, what's a Bionoid? And he answered this. Good luck winning at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So Foster was rebuilding the fortress and doing some experiments. He's doing some evil stuff basically. Cool cutscene. So we arrive at Castle Rock Fortress, i.e. the late 1700s. We got these robots that shoot projectiles by an arc. The attacks area is a bit wide, but it's pretty easy to dodge them. But oh my god! So many bees, so many spider thingies, so many drones, there's so many! Right now, where are we? We got this guy that shoots the slowest laser beam in video game history. There's no way to deflect this attack, so you gotta crouch down. The problem here is if there are a bunch of enemies coming towards you and you crouch under the beam, you cannot move while crouching, so you're pretty much vulnerable when this happens. The moment you see this enemy pop up, try your best to kill him quickly. And this is something you want to do when you move to this part. There are a ton of enemies here, mostly the said enemies and those little things that jump around in this area. I recommend killing those guys first since if they shoot you can't move around much, so just do that. Now we encounter Foster when Irene shows up. What? Our evil clone shows up, does a Dragon Ball Z move, and transforms into an evil purple Hulk. And this is by far the hardest boss fight yet. The boss jumps around, throws shurikens, and throws fireballs nearly at the same time. You're gonna spend a lot of time in this boss fight, and it's going to be more devastating when you realize you've spent so much time just trying to get to the boss fight. So when you run out of time, you go back here. The key to this boss fight is patience. Since the boss jumps around so much, you can't hit him most of the time. And he attacks often, so you need to be quick to dodge him. There's not much else to say here, it's just the fight takes so long to beat. So Clancy arrives, and what do you know, he's the real bad guy. He brought Foster with him and teleported to another dimension, I guess. So we followed him and we entered this crystal cave. The platforms act like the ice from the previous game, so no explanation is needed here. And then... am I in a mukbang video? So you might think that these are walls, well, they aren't. They just appear in the foreground, like why even put them here? You can't even discern it from the platforms around you. Honestly, they're pretty worthless. There's no reason to put them here. You're supposed to be dead. Who's that? Is that Goro from Mortal Kombat? Oh no, it's Scorpion. So this is a pretty simple fight. He shoots a fireball, charges at you, hits the wall, and stuff comes down. Overall, not a pretty difficult boss fight, so moving on. We got teleported and we meet Clancy, who now looks like Admiral Thrawn. What happened? The ancient ship of Doom is summoned, and now we gotta stop it. We're playing Wing Fortress Zone in reverse, and god damn, we got air again. It's still pretty annoying like the last title. Then we entered this area. Not much new in this area other than these electric fences that could literally kill you. Once we move to this part, I'm embarrassed to say how many times I retried this part. It's just that these moving platforms move so fast and the electric fences here provide you barely any space to jump around, so you just gotta time your moves properly. And then we entered this area which is pretty long and pretty challenging, so moving on. Spikes, fuck shit fuck more spikes. Then we finally encounter Clancy one last time, who looks like a Gundam that tried to fuse with an insect. He convinces us to join him, and since we're the good guy, we refused, obviously. Now, this fight ain't the hardest. You can do a ton of damage if you use our power-ups at the start of the fight immediately, but eventually you'll lose energy to use them. So when you try to hit him normally with a katana, you hit him and you hit him once more because he'll stop moving when you hit him for the first time. Just try to dodge the projectiles, especially the lightning. Overall, not the hardest fight, but, of course, this isn't the last boss fight. The second phase isn't too difficult as well. A bunch of projectiles come at the boss and charge up an attack that tracks you. This is his only attack here, which makes this phase pretty easy. And then we make it to the final phase, which acts like the same final phase from the previous games. He shoots a curved projectile and another projectile that bounces around. Sometimes this curved projectile is in the ground. I guess the attack depends on where you are vertically. There's barely any room here, so like that one boss from earlier, this fight will take you a while to beat. So once you hit him enough times, you just gotta hit the orb in his chest. And now he attacks sort of in a V-shaped pattern where he shoots lasers at you, and after just barely making it out alive, we beat the game. Yes! Finally! I've beaten the entire trilogy. That means I can rest. Well, no, we still got a couple minutes left. Son of a... So there goes the entire Ninja Gaiden trilogy for the NES. Definitely one of the best series of games for the system. It's full of action, has a good story, and looks pretty good for an NES game. However, it has its downsides. Obviously, these games are difficult, but not as much. Those who are new to these games might beat these games, and some might even find fun in these games. Pretty sure they belonged in a isolation ward. The gameplay is unique. It's just a perfect combination of being fast enough for the modern gaming audience, but with just the right amount of clunkiness to make it feel like an NES game. The entire story of this series is nothing groundbreaking. Did you really expect this game to have a LEGO Marvel Superheroes level of story quality? These games are from the 80s. It's not bad, but it's serviceable enough, and it's pretty much what you'd expect out of a video game about ninjas in the 1980s. As basic as the story is, it's actually quite good. Now, do I recommend playing these games? What have I been complaining about for 3 episodes? Nah, it's just that you can either tolerate these games or not. It just depends on you and your personality if you want to play the game. The only reason why I've been talking about games like this is to let everyone know that these kinds of games are the embodiment of suffering, but there's still good in them, which justifies the reason to want to play these games. And Ninja Gaiden is one of the many examples of that. I think I see it now. Even if my entire existence is based on complaining about stupidly difficult games, they're not actually that terrible. They're just terribly hard. But that's one of the reasons why they're good. And as you may already know, I reviewed the entirety of Ninja Gaiden, and it's good. It's pretty good. It's just hard. And by the entirety of Ninja Gaiden, I mean a third of the entire franchise.